Good morning. You listen to FloorDaily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. This morning, my guest is Kevin Wilds, the Vice President of Digital Experience for Mohawk. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
You know, I want to talk to you about this role you have with Mohawk, but before we do that, let's talk about your background. You're one of those that we always chuckle about. You got started in the flooring business early, and you're still in it. Real quickly, you went to the University of Georgia, you got a fine arts degree, your focus interior design, and then one of your first jobs is with Mohawk, helping with the Harbinger brand. Then you went in and you started the Envision brand, and you worked on Pacific Crest. You went to Home Depot, and you got involved in visual merchandising, which is, I guess, stepping away from flooring for a little while. And now for the last 2 years, you've been back at Mohawk, right?
That's right. So I got a chance to come back to Mohawk when I moved back into the area just a couple of years ago.
What attracted you back to Mohawk?
Mohawk is a very different company than it was 20 years ago when I worked here before. They've acquired quite a few companies, have really got a definitive set of brands and a definitive way of working that I thought was pretty intriguing, and their breadth and depth of product is unmatched, so I felt it was a good opportunity to come back and see if I could help out.
So let's focus on this quick work you did with Envision and Pacific Crest. I mean, those were two boutique brands. So what was the USP? What set those apart that allowed them to succeed?
Yeah, so right out of college, actually, I started Envision Carpet Systems with Beverly Murphy's. And what we were able to do there, and the reason why I was attracted to that is because we were small and because everybody did a little bit of everything. And I've always been sort of an entrepreneur in that sense. And really what set us apart at Envision was response. I mean, we sat down with Gensler and we sat down with architects and designers and asked them what they saw in the market and what they didn't see. And then we were able to respond very quickly back with lines of products that they said they needed, and more importantly, they said they would buy. So it worked out very well.
So looking now at your role, some people might scratch their head and say, so here's an interior designer, kind of a left brain, artistic type person, and now you're in this digital world and actually the leader at Mohawk of the digital experience. Connect that for me.
Well, I'm probably a little bit more left brain, right brain than most left brain people, if you will. But at the same time, too, I see everything as a version of design. So ultimately, the digital experience is still a designed experience, whether you're designing a piece of code or designing a plan to go to market online and digitally. So I tie it all together. It's all part of one big skill set, if you will.
All right, so let's talk about a couple of things that are in the news as we talk about digital. We just saw this week where Sears had filed for bankruptcy protection. Does digital have something to do with the fact that Sears is no longer relevant?
It's, in my opinion, it is definitely part of that puzzle. I think Sears has been having issues for a very long time, not having explored everything about Sears and ultimately what has led to their demise. The primary things that my understanding is that they did not change soon enough. So ultimately the world was going a different direction and Sears was holding on to what is now an antiquated model. By the time that they started making a decision to actually start fixing their business and working into the new way of doing business, including digital, I think it was too late, and it was just too hard for them to catch up. I think Toys R Us had the same issue when Toys R Us went through and basically took their digital fulfillment center and gave it to Amazon. They allowed Amazon to fulfill their orders for them rather than building their own infrastructure, and subsequently gave away their business to their competitors. So I think it's a matter of believing that you don't have to change and hoping that things will stay the same or, even worse, go back to the good old days.
With Sears, two of the brands you think about is Craftsman and Kenmore, and they sold those off, so why go back to Sears, right?
Exactly. I mean, yeah, they took some of their best assets and they sold them off, and they're still doing very well, of course, outside of the company. So I think it's a matter of not realizing what your primary assets are, ultimately what your best brands are, and then driving them into the future as opposed to trying to manage them as if it was the past.
One more question. When you start thinking about the strength of Google, 94% of all searches go through Google, and you think about the strength of the bigger players in the business, is it still feasible for these boutique brands like Harbinger or Envision or Pacific Crest to survive in today's digital world?
I think absolutely. One of the things, if you're starting a search engine company, it might be a little rough today. But if you're not starting a search engine company, if you're not following the exact Google model, Google has leveled the playing field, has digital in general. So there's a lot of ways to go after it. There are a lot of very small brands that have a lot of influence. that have really got a lot of brand recognition and a lot of brand equity because of the internet, because of the way Google works, but also the way that social media works and the way that inbound marketing works. And the price per entry for a brand nowadays is actually much smaller than it used to be. It used to be that a brand was $1 billion and it required a lot of work, a lot of publications, a lot of national ad campaigns on TV and radio, and now anybody can play that game. So I actually think the world has opened up a lot more for brands today than they used to be. In much the same way that TV and entertainment has. It used to be that you only got on one of 3 networks, otherwise you didn't make it as an actor, as a star. Nowadays you can start your own show. There are so many networks, there's so many different ways to make an impact. And I think it has actually leveled the playing field, even though the search area is actually being controlled primarily by one group.
At Mohawk, we're learning that most of your outreach for brand awareness is in the digital arena. Talk about that.
Well, the reason it's in the digital arena is because of the fact that our money is not well spent by having a national ad campaign that doesn't support or promote directly our specialty retailers and our retailers. So really helping drive business directly to them, the digital arena is the best place to do that. It's personal. It's very well crafted and curated for their shopper, and when she goes to buy flooring, we ultimately want to make sure that she makes it to the dealership. So although our brand is important and we're doing a lot of stuff online to support that, the primary goal is to make sure that it supports specialty retail.
All right, Kevin, it's great to catch up with you. Thanks for spending time with our listeners. Again, been talking to Kevin Wilds, the Vice President of Digital Experience for Mohawk, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and FloorDaily.net.